colors?
Like
Hey.
logo colors.
Oh, okay.
stand
This is pretty cool.
Yeah. It's turned out really good.
I will now call to order the special city council meeting of November 8th, 2021. Members of the public are invited to attend in-person meetings in council chambers. Public access to the meeting is also available by telephone by using the call-in numbers posted on the meeting agenda. Meetings are broadcast on Channel 8 for Comcast and Xfinity subscribers and on the city's YouTube channel online. All callers will be muted and may only comment during the times allotted for public comment as indicated on the agenda. If you are on the phone waiting to speak to council and are also watching the meeting on YouTube or Channel 8, please know there are a couple of seconds of delay with the live stream. Please turn down your computer or TV volume as we approach the sections of the agenda reserved for public invited to be heard, so you can hear the council meeting on the phone and to prevent background noise when you are unmuted to speak. Thank you for following these directions and for maintaining meeting decorum tonight. Joanna, will you call the roll, please?
Mayor Leidy,
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Wilford,
Here.
Councilmember Whitkovich,
Here.
Councilmember Downing,
Here.
Councilmember Brown,
Here.
Councilmember Goff,
Here.
Councilmember Duran Mollica,
Here.
Councilmember Lukman Hiromasa will be absent.
Please stand as you are able and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. City Manager Guyer, are there any responses to citizen inquiry?
Nothing this evening, Mayor. Thank you.
Are there any additions or deletions to the agenda? Okay. We have 2 proclamations tonight. So council members that would like to can join me down front.
Thank you.
Hello? Yes? Okay. Unfortunately, tonight we do not have a guest to accept our Native American Heritage Month proclamation, but I'm going to read it. Whereas Native American Heritage Month celebrates the accomplishments of the peoples who were the original inhabitants, explorers, stewards, and settlers of land in the United States. And whereas the Native history of Colorado is an important part of the state's identity, and tribal people are still a strong and vibrant part of its culture. And whereas Native Americans have moving stories of tragedy, triumph, and perseverance that need to be shared with future generations. And whereas today, about 54,000 people, or roughly 1% of Colorado's population, identifies as Native American. Descendants of the Cheyenne, Lakota, Kiowa, Navajo, and at least 200 tribal nations live in the Denver metro area. And whereas Native American individuals contribute to all areas of life in Colorado, including government, business, arts and sciences, medicine, education, law enforcement, and the military. And whereas the city of Northglenn is committed to equity and inclusion, and it is important to recognize the diverse cultures of our residents, staff, and community members who identify as American Indian, Native American, Indigenous, First Nation, or First People. And whereas our community is better because of the diversity of our population. And whereas Native American Heritage Month is a time to celebrate the cultural traditions and proud ancestry of Native Americans, and recognize the vital contributions they have made and continue to make. Now, therefore, I, Meredith Leidy, Mayor of the City of Northglenn, Colorado, do hereby proclaim November 2021 as Native American Heritage Month in the city of Northglenn and encourage all residents to acknowledge the vast achievements of Native Americans and learn more about the rich history of American Indians, Native, and Indigenous people. Dated at Northglenn, Colorado, that's 8th day of November, 2021. All right. Our second proclamation tonight is celebrating small businesses. So do we have, we do, Anita Adams. Come on up.
All righty.
Co-owner of Second Time Sports is here to accept our Small Business Saturday proclamation. So what I have here is Second Time Sports, go ahead and stand right here,
All righty.
won the Northland Small Business of the Year Award in 2017, and you recently expanded, yes, I've been to your new place, on 112th and Washington Street, the Courts Sports Complex. All right, I'm going to read this, and then you can say a few words.
All right, thank you.
All right. Whereas the government of Northglenn, Colorado celebrates our local small businesses and the contributions they make to our local economy and community. Whereas, according to the Small Business Administration, there are 31.7 million small businesses in the United States, representing 99.7% of firms with paid employees. And whereas this year, we know that small businesses need support now more than ever as they navigate, retool, and pivot from the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. And whereas small businesses employ 47.1% of the employees in the private sector in the United States, and 92% of small business owners have pivoted the way they do business to stay open during the pandemic. And whereas 97% of small business Saturday shoppers recognize the impact they can make by shopping small, and 85% of shoppers encourage friends and family to shop small too. And whereas 56% of shoppers reported they shopped online with a small business on Small Business Saturday in 2020, and more than 50% of consumers who reported shopping small endorsed a local business on social media or shopped at a local business because of a social media recommendation. And whereas the city of Northglenn, along with the 88% of U.S. consumers who feel a personal commitment to support small businesses in the wake of the pandemic, supports our local small businesses that work to create jobs, boost our local economy, and preserve our community. Now, therefore, I, Meredith Leidy, Mayor of the City of Northglenn, Colorado, do hereby proclaim November 27th, 2021 as Small Business Saturday in the City of Northglenn, and urge the residents of our community and communities across the country to support small businesses and merchants on Small Business Saturday and throughout the year. Dated at Northglenn, Colorado, this 8th day of November, 2021. Thank you for being here and
Thank you for having me.
representing all the small businesses. I'm going to hand this over to you.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and City Council. It is a pleasure to be here tonight to accept this proclamation on behalf of all small businesses in Northglenn. Second Time Sports is a family-owned and operated small business that opened in 2012. Our theme is Keep Sports Affordable for Families. We are blessed to be in Northland because we feel you all have embraced us to do just that, and that you truly appreciate what small business brings to Northland. This time of year, we concentrate on snow sports sales, rental, and waxing of skis and snowboards. Last year was really tough with COVID, especially for small businesses like ours, and next year will be another to struggle through. On behalf of all Northglenn small businesses, we encourage residents and visitors to shop and dine at a local, small, independently owned Northglenn business on November 27th. Show them that you appreciate the customer service and get to know them. After all, we are all neighbors. Thank you.
I'm here to boss you around about the picture. So I want Becky in it, so I'm gonna put two of you on that side of her, and two of you on that side of her, and then I'm gonna have you stay. Yeah, you stay, just stay where you are, Becky, yeah.
Are you
So we
sure?
go- Yep, you stay there, you guys go on the middle, there you go, and then I
And
want
you tell me.
you right here.
Right
Oh,
here.
perfect.
Like this?
I can get you off, we'll see.
If not, I can try to stand.
Yep, perfect, I can get everybody. All right. So shows your proclamation.
Oh. Hold on here.
Excellent. All right, ready? 1, 2, 3. Again. Last center. Not that that's surprising. All right, ready? Last one. Thanks, everybody. Perfect.
Well, thank you. And thank you all. Appreciate it very much.
Thank you. Have a great night.
Good night now. Oh, by the way, come into Second Time Sports. Get your season.
I go in every season.
All right, we're moving into public invited to be heard. This is an opportunity for public comment on any item not set for public hearing. Joanna, has anyone signed up to speak to council?
I had a message from resident Mark Bromley that he would like to provide public comment, but I did not receive an audio file from him. So besides that, I don't have anybody signed up.
So what did that mean?
So unless he sends the audio file during the meeting, I don't have anything to play, even though he
Oh.
indicated he wanted to speak to council.
Got it.
But he didn't leave a message? Is that what that is?
Okay.
He emailed, he just didn't include
Oh.
the audio attachment,
Okay.
is what happened.
And we don't have anyone tonight. All right. We will move into communication. We'll start with Ward 1. Councilmember Whitkovich?
Thank you, Mayor. Just a few things I wanted to mention. On November 1st, I was able to attend virtually the Rocky Flats Stewardship Council with Councilmember Downing to kind of get a feel for what that's like, because I am interested in taking that over when Joyce is no longer here. So I got to attend that, and she probably won't mention it, but they were very appreciative of her service as chair. And so they had some nice things to say that morning. Also, today I met with the architects who are helping us with our new city hall, and I just wanted to make sure that I encourage all residents to reach out to your city council members if you have any ideas or suggestions about what you'd like to see in that new building. And lastly, I just wanted to advertise the next No Need for Speed meeting that's going to be happening related to Ward 1. The study was done in the area of 109th and Fox Run, so if you live near there and you're interested in attending, that's going to be next Wednesday, November 17th at 6:00 PM right here in council chambers. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Downing, how are you?
Pretty good, thank you. I don't have anything to share this evening. Thank you.
Councilmember Brown?
I actually don't have anything to share, but I do have a question. Well, I would like to congratulate J. Michael Palamilo on his election to Ward 2. I'm super excited to be working with him moving forward in the future. And then I have a question for Heather. Heather, can we do anything over at Stuckey Elementary? A lot of complaints about traffic, and what I was told was that they're calling the police every day and, you know, they're not getting any resolution. So I feel like it's the same thing that was going on over by off Wyco, by Wyco Park, the STEM and Holstrom. So I was wondering if we could do the same thing where we had extra coverage on the streets when they're getting out of school so that they can move the parents along. Apparently, they're blocking their driveways, parking and dropping their driveways and getting out
So
of
is
the car.
that the primary issue, or is it speeding? Are there
It is
other-
not speeding. The
Okay,
primary complaint
blocking
is
driveways.
the drivers, the rude drivers.
Okay, chief, do you got that? Okay,
Okay,
we'll
thank
take care
you.
of it, thanks.
Thank you. That's all I have tonight, Mayor.
Councilmember Goff?
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, I wanted to thank everyone who ran in our last election for positions in Northland, and to congratulate the winners and welcome them, you know, to our city council. And then I just wanted to say to all the people who did run, we do appreciate that you are interested in serving your community. And there are, just to remind you, there are always other methods and places where you can participate on a commission or a board or volunteer in some other ways. So I encourage everyone who ran and wasn't elected to continue participating. Then the other thing I guess I would say is in the last couple of weeks, I participated at the Northglenn Business Appreciation event at our new rec center, and it was fabulous. It's a wonderful way to showcase our new facility, and I wanted to thank all the staff who worked so hard to make that such a success, and especially Debbie Tuttle. It was very impressive. I think everybody who came was impressed and enjoyed it. And then I also have the Legislative Policy Committee update, so let's see, let me pull this up here. We met today and we heard from our legislative staff that the 2022 budget proposal was submitted by our governor and is likely to be not to be changed too drastically because the state propositions that were on our ballot, none of them passed, so there was nothing there that was going to change anything. And that right now, the state has about $1 billion as a Tabor refund, and so we're going to wait and see what happens with that. But it doesn't seem like too likely that the state is going to offer tax credits that would kind of offset some of that. There's going to have to be something else done with that or some other way to work that out. And our state legislators are still working out our federal relief funds, so we haven't heard too much yet about what they're going to do with that. The other thing we discussed was our legislative policy guide, and we are moving forward on that, and you can expect it to come to City Council on December 6th. Our next agenda item was the legislative dinner agenda, and so we discussed that and kind of worked out the details. There's going to be a presentation to City Council and to our state legislators, and then we're going to hear from them. And that, let's see, we are planning on that. I have a date here, January 2nd. I think that's right. And we look forward to that.
January
3rd? Okay, so I was wondering, I heard two different dates. Okay, January 3rd. And then our final thing that we discussed was that the Rocky Mountain Partnership updated their policy framework, and it was shared with City Council through an email, but it was shared to the Legislative Policy Group through email. But it was kind of a last minute thing. We didn't really have enough time to look at it. They were wanting the city to sign on in support, but we just abstained because we really hadn't had enough time to look at it or discuss it. And we will in the future take a closer look at that, and then you'll hear more about that. So that was it for me.
Catherine, can I ask a question?
Sure.
What if somebody who's newly elected wants to be on the legislative committee? Should we be putting the guide out before we do assignments?
I think we have to in order to publish it on time. But then if different people are on it, then that might change who's how we do the presentation for our state legislature.
Yeah, we have to have the guide ready for the legislative dinner. Now, however the appointments happen to the committee, I mean, that person could still influence what the actual work and the bills that the committee chooses to support or stay neutral or oppose moving forward. So the actual work isn't really starting until January.
Okay. And I'm sorry, one more question. Did we pass with the legislative committee that it needs to come to council before we say that it's approval, or am I misunderstanding that? If we're going to back something.
Well, as far as I know, I'm trying to remember, we had that whole spelled out in the legislative policy, and I think city manager can help us with that. But I think it was if, there were some limitations on if it had to be done immediately or how it fit into the policy. So maybe
Would you like me to speak to that?
Yeah, yes, please.
So council did adopt the new legislative protocols, and so within those protocols, it says that the Legislative Policy Committee can take action in terms of positions of support, opposition, or no position on items based on the guidance provided in the Legislative Issues Guide. If something falls outside of that content, then the protocol requires that the committee bring that bill forward to council for input. So that could either be at a meeting or electronically via email, depending on the timing of when those
Okay,
happen.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
Councilmember Duran Malika.
Awesome, thank you. So I wanted to, I have just a couple updates. First of all, the business appreciation event was phenomenal this year. And it was such a special event to have, you know, with like in-house at our theater. So I wanted to thank Debbie Tuttle and team and the rest of staff. I mean, there are so many people there from the staff to interact with folks or to help out with the event. So thank you, everybody, because that was just a really special night. And I was happy to be a part of that. I do have a shameless plug. So this weekend, the Northland Youth Theater is presenting All Together Now, and my daughter was cast in that. So I'm super excited about it. So check it out. You could still buy tickets for this Saturday and Sunday. Huge event. I'm going to be there both times. So I encourage others to come too. And then the only non-fun update I have is talking about NADA. We did have a NADA meeting last week, and that's our North Area Transportation Alliance. We did have our RTD's directors report out. N-line ridership is up 83% between January and August. So it's been, all of us know RTD was hit really hard with COVID, and people slowly kind of making their way back to transit. So eventually, you know, our ridership's going to continue on the N-line and really make that line successful. And so it's good to see that number up. Also, RTD is thinking about implementing free fare days for ozone non-compliance days. And those are so when our ozone levels are too high, right? We all hear those alerts. They're trying to come up with a way where we can implement free fare days and call them spare the air days. So to encourage people to ride transit on those days when the ozone is, you know, really, really bad, which happens a lot over the summer. So I think that that could be something that could really help the region overall. And then finally, my last transportation update is for those Northglenn residents who are frequent Federal Boulevard riders, Westminster, the city of Westminster and Federal Heights have a great project website up about this entire work they're doing on Federal Boulevard. They're doing lots of multimodal improvements to it. If you want to see what the project entails and if you want to leave comments or anything like that, go check out www.federalboulevard, BLVD, multimodalstudy.com. So it's really long, but or I'm sure you could just Google Federal Boulevard Multimodal Study and it'll come up. Because they just have a lot of work that they're doing for that corridor, and I know that it's really highly traveled, probably by some of our residents as well. That's all I got.
Great. Mayor Pro Tem Wolford.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm so bummed I don't get to be there in person with you all this evening. Couple of updates from me. First, want to echo that the business appreciation event was just phenomenal. I really enjoyed being there, as well as getting to say hello to so many of our business owners. The event was just so much fun. It felt really intimate. And I have to say a huge thanks to Debbie, as well as theater staff and everybody who had a hand in shaping that event and making sure that it was a success. On my way out of the event, I ran into a business owner that I hadn't met before, and she also shared her congratulations and her thanks for such a lovely event, and said that she attends many business appreciation events across the metro area, and that ours was by far the best that she's ever been to. So I just wanted to pass along that positive feedback, because I think she's exactly right. It was something really special for us to continue to build on in future years. Secondly, I also wanted to extend my congratulations to our newly elected city council members, and am very much looking forward to getting to know them, as well as work with them And again, thanks to everybody who ran and started a conversation about a variety of different issues across the city. I hope that you will continue to stay engaged and continue to lend your perspective to some of those issues at the top of mind for the residents that you spoke with. And then finally, I wanted to check in. I know that we have for some time been talking about revisiting our electronic participation policy and trying to make some, I guess, having an additional discussion as to whether or not we want to extend that or change that based on the hybrid world that we're living in with the pandemic. And I haven't seen that has been scheduled anytime soon. I think it's been pushed out into perhaps February. And so I guess I just wanted to elevate that as something that, perhaps if we're able to get on the agenda sooner rather than later, that would be great. But if we are operating under our existing, remote participation policy, I believe that I have to ask for permission to attend virtually since this will have been my meeting that I could attend virtually for the quarter. And I will need to join virtually for the next meeting as both my husband and my son have tested positive for COVID. So want to make sure that I'm not bringing anything to council and that we're being as safe as possible. So I'll pause there and see if there's anything that Heather wants to share, or if anybody has any questions or any insight on as to how we move forward.
Heather, you want to take it?
Say again?
Do you want to take that?
Sure. So that bringing back the electronic participation policy in non-emergency situations is coming back to council on February 7th. The reason it was pushed into 2022 is simply an agenda management approach and trying to take care of the highest priority needs first. We do, as you've seen me share with you, have a couple cancellation of upcoming meetings around the holidays. So that does play a factor into why we shifted it. In addition, the new council members coming on board as well. So happy to answer any questions about what I just shared.
So does that mean we can still go with the policy that we had set before, which was a hybrid policy where we weren't counting how many people did at home?
You're utilizing your existing policy in a non-emergency scenario. So I can't remember off the top of my head. I think that limits you to 4 meetings. Is that correct, Joanna?
I mean, I don't have any questions simply because I know why it was moved. And it's still on track to be a conversation that we have relatively soon, considering the meetings that we don't have in the next couple months. So, Councilmember Duran Malika?
Quick question. So is someone keeping track of the 4? And what happens if you go over your 4? Did we talk about that?
Do you want to speak to
Doesn't
that,
matter.
Joanna? About tracking attendance or anything like that?
I'm not, well, I can let council know that we track attendance at council meetings, but I have not been tracking physical versus virtual attendance. I just wrote myself a note asking myself if I need to start doing that. So unless you are, Heather, I am not doing that.
I'm not. It's really a self-administered process where you all hold each other accountable for following the process and the policy.
Okay, well, I think that would be a great discussion point for when that comes back up.
Absolutely.
Until that time, how do we deal with issues like Jenny's and mine too, because I used all 4 of mine when I hurt my back, where we still may have to take a meeting virtually. We just won't be allowed to vote?
No, you vote.
No, you can.
I mean, everything's been operating. So just like Heather said, we have to hold each other accountable. Nobody's babysitting us but
Okay.
us. Yeah. So,
Sounds like a plan.
yeah.
Hope your family feels better, Jenny.
Thank you, Becky, and thank you all so much for talking about this. I don't have a problem with the date that it's scheduled with, scheduled for discussion in February. I just wanted to elevate it and make sure that I was following the council protocol. Thank you.
Absolutely. All right, I have a few things. Let's see here. I did attend, so I'm on the Mile High Flood District Board, and so I had a meeting there. We are getting a new executive director. I'm on the nominating committee. We approved the budget, and it was important to note that 13% of the CIP for the flood district goes to Adams County. So that was just an interesting fact for me. The Metro Mayor's Caucus met, and I'm on the executive committee. We met again. Small piece is that we met at Lakewood City Hall, and if you've never been there, that place is pretty cool. So there was a lot of interesting elements artistically that caught my attention. Their use of art in that space is really well done. We just met to plan our budget. I had the opportunity with our own Michael Stricker to go to the CBCA event last week, and I was one of the speakers, which was fun. But it was a great event, and I learned a lot, and it helped me better understand Michael's presentations when he comes with a ton of data. Now I know where he gets it. So that was fun. Participated in City Hall tours, and I know a lot of us did that as well. Let's see, on Saturday, a beautiful event was the dedication for the Colorado Fallen Heroes Memorial downtown. And it was just beautiful. And I really encourage everyone to take some time and go down and look. It's at the dedication, lots of people were there, lots of five-star families, and they were able to tell their stories. And all of the Colorado Fallen Heroes had their photograph and all their information. They were all hanging from the trees by the memorial. It was just a beautiful event, so I was very happy to attend that. And I'm also very much looking forward to celebrating with our city Veterans Day on Thursday. So I will be at the Veterans Lunch at our senior center. So I'm looking forward to that because I want to honor and say thank you to our veterans. So if I see you there, that'll be great. If not, just know that we thank you for your service. Thursday is also the Colorado Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. They're having a networking event at the Ramos Law Building in Northland. So and I know I reached out to our own Debbie Tuttle to see if we could connect our businesses with that networking event because it's very important. So I will be doing that. And I'm super excited because the Colorado Symphony is coming to the Parsons Theater. So that will be a really fun way to kind of wrap up Veterans Day. So I'm hoping there's still tickets available, but I'm excited to go attend that. And that is all I have. Joanna, how are you tonight?
I'm doing well, thank you. But I have no communications tonight. Thank you,
Okay.
Mayor.
City Manager Geyer?
I have nothing this evening other than I have 2 tickets to the symphony, so if you can't get tickets, you can beg me for them. I'm really excited about that concert.
Yeah, it'll be great. City Attorney Hoffman?
Good evening. I too have nothing to report tonight.
Okay, excellent. All right, we will move into our financial report, September 2021 update with Jason Loveland, our Director of Finance. Welcome, Jason.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. This is our third quarter update. So this is through September. We'll talk about taxes to get started. This is taxes paid in August, collected and remitted to the city in September. So we're a month behind. A couple of highlights here. We've been talking the whole year about increased sales tax. You can see that top blue line on this line graph. It really just started off and has continued this year to really shine on the sales and use tax front. We're up 24% compared to last year. And when we go back to 2019, we'll call that our more normal base year. We're still at 14%. So all in all, sales and use tax really performing well. A Some key numbers there, auto use tax is up 39%. The food tax is up 5%. That's actually up 17% over 2019. And then marijuana tax is up 5%. So those are kind of our main contributors on the sales tax. One piece in here, we've talked about the building materials use tax with some work at Carl's Farm. That's one-time in nature, and that's generated about $1.5 million, which is included in this number, but still overall positive growth. Even if you remove that one-time building material use tax, we're still up about 10%, which is still positive, and happy to be able to report that. Within sales and use tax, one topic you'll see on the geocode reports on page 11 of, not the presentation, but the other report, the majority of the areas are up significantly, up about 4% within our geographic boundary versus 2019. So that shows some growth there. One item, the out-of-city vendors, typically that's our online sales. Those are up 85% from 2019 and up 50% year over year from 2020. So I think that there's a lot of factors there, people's shopping habits. We've seen some gains with the sales tax simplification at the state level, the SUTS program, if you recall us joining that and participating. We've seen some increased tax remittance from vendors that we normally don't or hadn't been seeing. So positive things on this front on sales and use tax. On the general fund side, I will say for all the funds, our expenditures are in line with what was projected. The place that you'll see discrepancies from fund to fund will be in the capital outlay. Many of those projects lag behind throughout the year, and so that's true in this report for the third quarter.
What's the deal with the taxes? 3 million off?
So this is compared to the year-to-date, to the budget.
Right.
So the collection rate of 86% is actually up. That's more normally through this time about 70%. So we're actually ahead of pace there. So we're factoring that in. If we split the year evenly, our collection rate here would be about 75%, and then our spending rate would also be 75%. We don't have that normal distribution across the 12 months, so we'll see some influx.
So we'll see an uptake at the end of the year when when we're done doing our year-end.
Correct. Yeah. We'll expect to see taxes above 100% when we get through December for the taxes collected. We didn't budget for one-time revenues for building material use tax. And then we've also just seen an uptick in general, surpassing what we had expected when we made the budget, however many months ago that was for 2021.
Do you off the top of your head know what's going on with the intergovernmental? Oh, never mind, because I was reading it backwards. Actually less.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, the one that I will speak to, since we're going down the line there, is the user charges and fees. That line is 56%. Typically, more normal years, about 66%. The recreation center, those activities obviously slowed by the pandemic. So we're a little bit trailing on that line item. All others on the revenue side in the general fund are in alignment. Total revenue of $22.1 million through September. And then on the expenditure side, again, the spending rate in the far right column, those align with historical trends for the various categories of personnel, purchase services, supplies, so on. So total expenditures of just at $18.9 million for total net change in fund balance. If we ended in September, which we did not, would be a $2.8 million reported in that third from the bottom line.
the 114.57, that's the percentage that our general fund is at?
That's an estimate that no, that is how much we're expecting. That fund balance, the actual fund balance was 114% more than what we had projected when we budgeted.
You know the answer to my favorite question? Girls, say it in unison. What is our general fund? What is our reserve?
I didn't want to interrupt if everybody was going to chime in. But it's right around 80%. We'll expect that to go up if the year continues to trend the way it is.
So we need to seriously start working on bringing.
So,
Spending.
I know.
all right. Any more questions on the general fund? No? Okay. Skipping ahead to the Conservation Trust Funds, year-to-date revenues, $357,347. No expenditures. This fund supports capital outlay projects, specifically this year's budget, the $530,000. Greenway Trail, Sensory Playground, which is the playground at E.B. Raines Junior Memorial Park, the J.C. Ballfield lights, and the bocce ball court was budgeted there. No spending has been done in that through September. And then in the Capital Projects Fund, you'll notice the revenue, that's a grouping of many of the various intergovernmental revenues, Adams County open space, transportation tax, as well as 4% special marijuana tax, and the 0.5% sales tax. That total is $7 million. Collection rate is at 81%. So a little bit ahead of schedule due to the prior conversation about sales and use tax performing well. And then expenditures in that fund, $16.7 million on capital outlay. $15.2 million of that is the recreation center construction. And then you'll see the other financing sources, uses. Those are both uses, and those are our interest payments in June for the Justice Center and Recreation Center certificates of participation that total that $1 million. So on to the next, the water fund. Again, you'll see here total revenue of $10.8 million and expenditures of $5.2 million. Again, the operational side of things on the spending, those are in alignment. You'll see $7.8 million in capital outlay budgeted and have spent $649,000. There's a $3.7 million waste handling project that's underway, just hasn't generated the expenditures through September. And then in the wastewater fund, total revenues, $4.5 million and expenditures of $3.7. You'll note the capital outlay, $11.8 million expended through September. $10.7 million of that is Lift Station A and the Force Main project that we've discussed several times. Things are lining up well in that fund and on that project. And then in the stormwater fund, total revenues $384,000 and expenditures of $144,000. $55,000 of those expenditures have been made for storm drainage improvements throughout the city. And then the expenditure budget also includes, projects for storm drainage of over $400,000 that have not been incurred through September. And then last fund that we'll touch on, sanitation fund, total revenues of 1.3, expenditures just under 1.1. The revenues collection rate of 68% is in line, as well as expenditures on the operational side of 53% through this point of the year. So I won't recap it because that was a quick presentation. You probably all still remember what I said
Everywhere.
3 minutes ago. But overall, performance on sales and use tax, which is our large revenue, has continued to really impress. And we're looking forward to see what the last quarter has to bring. So with that, can take any other questions or go to the next item.
Becky, you got more?
My question's actually for Heather. Heather, can you get some information on what we're spending down the general fund on the next budget?
Can you be more clear about what your question is? I don't understand.
We have the general fund at 80%, right?
The general fund reserve.
Right, and
Yes.
we had talked about lowering it, and I'm just wondering if you could provide me with totals or actually percentage of what we're what we're getting into with that. You know what I mean? Because 80% is just way too high. And I just want to make sure that we're making a good knock at getting it down.
Right. What I would suggest is let's wait till we get through year end. And then Jason and I can bring back a discussion with you so we see how we end the fiscal year. And then based on what our reserve level looks like going into 2022, we can then figure out discussions about what you can do to appropriate additional funds if you'd like for the 2022 budget.
Okay. I know you guys are shocked that I think the general fund's too high, but we made it through the pandemic and it's just too high.
For the 20.
I hope so.
Any other questions for Jason? No? Nobody at home? All right, thank you so
Okay,
much.
thank
Okay, moving into the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All right. Joanna, please open the vote.
The vote is open.
Find the vote. Hold on.
Ditto.
Mayor Pro Tem Wilford, how do you vote?
Yes.
And Councilmember Downing, how do you vote?
Yes.
It's me. Hold on.
I'll close that vote and the consent agenda passes unanimously.
Okay. Moving into ordinances. We will start with CB 1977. Joanna, will you read the title, please?
A bill for an emergency ordinance amending Chapter 11 of the Northglenn Municipal Code, amending various sections of the Unified Development Ordinance regarding floodplain regulations.
Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
All right, Tamara Moon, our environmental manager, is here to provide a summary.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. CB 1977 is an emergency ordinance that updates the municipal code regarding floodplain designations within the Grange Hall Creek drainage area. There are two parts to the ordinance revision. The first section of updates revise the date of the floodplain maps that are referenced in our municipal code. Those floodplain maps are developed by FEMA, and they also support the flood insurance rate maps. These maps indicate the area that is impacted by flooding and the rates that can be applied for by insurance carriers for individuals or businesses that have property that lie within the floodplain. Additionally, the maps allow residents and business owners to make use the information to make necessary arrangements on how they the best possible decisions on how to protect their assets, their property, personal property, furniture, that sort of thing, if they're living within the floodplain. From the city planning perspective, these maps also allow us to make good decisions about how we allow development or redevelopment within the floodplain and what sort of work needs to be done during those development activities to minimize the risk of flood damage. Acknowledging the map revisions by amending our municipal code to reference the most recent FEMA maps In this case, those finalized in June of 2021 with an effective date of December 2nd, 2021, allows the city to continue to participate in federal flood insurance programs and allows residents and business owners to purchase flood insurance under this federal program. Not making this amendment change, along with the statement of statutory authority, would result in Northglenn residents or businesses that lie within the floodplain being unable to access flood insurance. The second part of the emergency ordinance revision is to adopt language that prohibits temporary structures within the floodplain as recommended by the Mile High Flood District. The intention of this added language is to protect public safety and reduce the potential loss of life during flooding events. Additionally, restricting temporary structures of all kinds within the floodplain is essential to ensuring that the city's stormwater infrastructure is able to effectively carry flood flows away from the city without risk of debris plugging a storm drain inlets or causing damage to storm sewers. Debris including items such as shopping carts, building materials, that sort of thing can exacerbate flooding impacts, creating hazardous conditions to residents and the potential for substantial damage to private and public property. The overall intention of both sections of the ordinance revision is to protect human life, public safety, and protect critical infrastructure, and allow residents and business owners to access valuable resources through the federal flood insurance program.
Okay. Well, I know we have quite a few hands up. I'm probably going to kick it off with a pretty generic question that we all have, because we all received an email today.
Correct.
And so when I look at the memo, it says that it was presented to the Planning Commission, but it doesn't say what happened. Can
Sure.
you speak to that?
Sure, I can give a brief overview. From my understanding, I did not attend the Planning Commission meeting, but from my understanding, there was some concerns about the initial language regarding the prohibition of temporary structures within the floodplain. So the Planning Commission had two separate votes, one to consider separating that particular language from the mandatory language, which is the date change and the statutory authority language. And then the other one was to have, to accept the ordinance revisions as they were presented. In both cases, the vote there at the time were 4-4 for both options, and so there was no recommendation provided by the Planning Commission on this particular measure.
Okay. Councilmember Goff?
Thank you, Mayor. Question for clarification. It is my understanding that the Mile High Flood District already has language in place forbidding temporary housing in floodplains?
Correct, that's correct.
So what would be the point or the reasoning behind like repeating that in our own code?
Sure, I think that it's just, Mile High Flood District recommends that cities implement this sort of language in their municipal code to give some additional authority behind the recommendation that they have provided and to their particular, under their authority. Corey may have a
Yes,
better
absolutely.
answer to that than I do, though.
Well, I think practically speaking, this is about what can be located in the floodplain and what would impact the ability of the floodplain to work effectively. And the idea of prohibiting temporary structures in the floodplain, frankly, doesn't have anything to do with folks experiencing homelessness at all. It has to do with not having things in the floodplain that would clog debris that would create problems. So it is trying to follow the policy advice of the experts we rely on related to floodplain management. That's the issue. We already have in Northglenn an urban camping prohibition. And so if Northglenn were going to be in the position of having to enforce its ordinances, it would do so under the camping ban, not under the floodplain management. This is a way to have our regulations be in line with industry practices for floodplain management.
Okay, well, I guess because this seems like a little, kind of a complicated issue in terms of the repercussions or how, that the Planning Commission couldn't even come to, majority agreement. The next question then is for, I think I don't know who, actually, but what would be, is there a process for us tonight to separate these two out and pass the floodplain mapping part of it, and then we could discuss this other one at a future date?
It would be approving sections 1, 2, and 5.
And so would we just, at some point, someone makes a motion, and then,
That is correct.
so sections 1, 2, and 5 are the mapping part of it?
Yes, and 5 also adds a definition of temporary structure, but it doesn't have any language that would regulate that. It would just add the definition. So if you approve the ordinance with sections 1, 2, and 5, that would not add any of the regulatory language related to temporary structures in the floodplain, but would allow us to continue to offer flood insurance in Northglenn.
All right, thank you, that's what I wanted to know.
So can I ask a clarification, Corey? Because I mean, that is the recommendation in the letter from the resident that we all received, so, but there were 2 points of clarification that you just made. The fact is that we already have a camping ban, and that was one of the arguments that the resident made. And then second, the Mile High Flood District, what is their authority to, yeah.
They don't have regulatory authority in the city of Northglenn in a direct sense. We manage our property, so they are sort of the resource and also the monetary resource for floodplain improvements that we rely on.
Absolutely. I knew the answer because I'm on the board, but I just wanted you to say it. Okay, just check it. Councilmember Brown.
I have 2 questions. The first one is there a specific area of Northland that is designated as a floodplain?
There are a couple areas, particularly the areas that run along Grange Hall Creek and the Brantner Ditch, I guess is what it's called, or yes. So we have 2 areas. And it includes the tributaries to those 2 flood conveyance creeks, streams, whatever you want to call them. So they're the homes and businesses that lie along those two creeks.
Okay. And then my second question, I don't know who I'm directing it to, but what is the advantage, or what is the advantage to pushing the change in our actual verbiage to look at it at another time? I'm just not sure why it can't stay where it is today. So, Catherine, do you want to address that?
Well, I guess I don't quite understand. I'd like to do a little bit of research on what the repercussions would be of doing this. I mean, if it's something, we already have a camping ban, we already have the language from the floodplain, organization that we could use if we needed to, move anybody. It's there, so I don't quite get why we would add another regulation and more language to repeat what's already there. So that I just need to understand why we would want to put more on there.
I felt like Corey just answered that. Could you maybe switch to the opposite? Why would we not?
Well, I think as it stands right now, it's to my mind, and somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but if there was an issue or a concern, the Northglenn police have the authority to move somebody or ask, tell them it's not safe to stay where they are, they need to leave. So I just don't understand, to put more into it is like maybe making it more of a priority, or it feels like it anyway. And right now, I think what I hear from residents is that the priorities they'd like to see from our police department have to do with more other areas of safety and also traffic violations. So if people are telling me, well, how come the police can't, stop every speeder and stop all the fireworks, and our answer might be that we don't have enough staff, then why would we want to have this be such a priority that, I mean, I don't know, I'm just imagining the police department, driving through that area and checking it out on some regular basis or something. So I'm just concerned about why that needs to be, underlined with this language.
Yeah.
I guess I have a different perspective I would offer, and that is I don't think this is being viewed in any way by anyone in the city as a mechanism to enforce. Rather, in the event of a flood event, a major flood event, I would hate to have stuff from temporary structures served to make a flood event worse because debris had impacted our ability to manage the floodplain. And so this is really bringing our code up to industry standard as it relates to temporary structures to prevent that type of destruction from occurring. I can think of a number of examples of debris getting stuck, which makes a flood event worse. It really doesn't have anything to do with enforcement against individuals experiencing homelessness. And one other, I guess, technical issue that as it relates to the Planning Commission, is because it was a tie, they didn't make a recommendation one way or another. If they did make a recommendation of denial, it would be a different discussion, but they couldn't make a recommendation at all. So I do think and certainly staff can correct me, but I think it's staff's recommendation to approve the ordinance in the form it's been presented. Respectfully understanding the objections of some folks on the Planning Commission. I wasn't at the Planning Commission meeting either. I wish I would have been to be able to explain kind of what these issues are. It might have helped, but I think our recommendation is to approve the whole thing.
Mayor Pro Tem Wolford.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thanks for that explanation, Corey. That was definitely helpful. I guess a couple of just first thoughts is that, I feel like as a community and as a council, we, have traditionally very much appreciated and honored the work that our committees have done. And so I just hope that in the future that, if we find ourselves in this situation where a committee is not able to make a recommendation either for or against a piece of policy that's in front of them, that information can be actually included in the packet, and that we don't have to hear that from a resident. So that's just a piece of feedback for future meetings, and something I'd like to see. And I want to make it explicitly clear that I do not feel like staff had tried to hide that by any means. That is not what I'm saying. I just would like to have the additional information. I guess so. I feel like I'm starting to understand what the issue is, but also still a little confused. So Corey, back to your points. So as of right now, our staff under the ordinances that exist do not have the authority to clean up any of these, I guess, like shopping carts or structures or anything that could exacerbate a flood situation.
As part of the city's camping ban ordinance, there is notice and an opportunity for someone to take their things as part of the camping ban. But the camping ban is not unique to a floodplain. The camping ban applies to public property generally. So no, there is language currently that would allow the city, as part of its urban camping ban, to address stuff on public property. This is different. This is about temporary structures in the floodplain, frankly unrelated to a camping ban. It is a much broader issue. It could apply to someone who may apply to put a shed in their backyard if their backyard is in the floodplain. It could apply to a whole host of other things beyond just people experiencing homelessness. And I can't emphasize enough that in a major flood event, those type of regulations are important to keep the floodplain to be used for its intended purpose, which is carrying water away to minimize damage.
Okay, I have another follow-up question on that. Based on our camping ban, can you help me? I don't know where to look. So if you can either point me in the right direction or maybe you know the answer. What does the city define as camping? Is it just being physically covered by like a sleeping bag? Is it considered a tent? Like, are we adding in additional, I guess, language or definitions here?
The answer is I don't have the camping ban, but these are not They are two entirely different issues, because this deals with temporary structures. Someone camping may or may not have a temporary structure such as a tent to sleep in. And if someone were, for example, in a sleeping bag, this wouldn't cover it at all. And frankly, even if they were in a tent, it is not the city's intent at all to use this ordinance as a tool to address camping in the floodplain. We already have ordinances that prohibit camping on public property, and we would use that language, not the floodplain management language.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
I don't see any more hands. Joanna, will you call the vote, please?
What are we voting on? Are we voting on Catherine's
Voting
suggestion
on
that
the
we?
ordinance.
I didn't make the motion. I'm with
So we're voting on.
Yep, we're voting on the current motion.
The vote is open. Mayor Pro Tem Wilford, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councilmember Downing, how do you vote?
Yes.
I will close that vote, and CB 1977 on first and final reading passes unanimously.
Moving into resolution, CR 124. Joanna, will you read the title, please?
A resolution approving a professional services agreement between the City of Northglenn and Velocity Constructors Incorporated for the Bull Reservoir Pump Station Replacement Project.
Motion to approve.
Okay.
Ken Kisselman, our Director of Public Works, is here to provide a summary. Hi, Ken.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you for having me. So a little bit of background. This project has been approximately 3 years in the making. This is up at our wastewater treatment plant. Several of you, I think, have visited that area. There's 3 giant pumps up there on the, let's see, northwest. Heather, don't make fun of my directions. Northwest area. And 2 of those pumps have failed. We have one kind of limping along. So for the last 3 years, we've been working with a consultant and in design and ordering the pumps. And this is a presentation for the contractor. We went out for bid for the actual construction of the project. And we received 5 bids. 5 bids, and our consultant, J&T Consulting, reviewed the bids and determined that, goodness sakes, Velocity Constructors was the lowest responsible bidder. These pumps are, the reason why the construction is so much, we have the pumps, we ordered the pumps, they're on site. But the wellheads for these pumps go down like 30 feet. So there is significant work that needs to be done on these pumps to kind of retrofit them to get them to work for our augmentation purposes up at the Bull Reservoir. So it'll be a really good project. And again, we've been working for quite a while to get this done. You'll see on the memo, the kind of the breakdown of what was appropriated. We spent approximately $48,000 on the engineering and the project management that'll be through the end of the project. The actual pumps were about $230,000, and the Velocity contractor contract is $751,226, and we recommend approval as presented, and I'll answer any questions.
Councilmember Brown?
Hi, Kent. Thanks for coming in tonight. I have a question for you, of course. I'm wondering, this is the first time I've heard anybody say that they actually had the consultant review the bids, yada, yada, yada. Did they say what, besides a lower price, what actually led them to choose Velocity?
No, it's a common practice that when we have large projects that our consultant reviews the bids alongside with us and we use their professional opinions. So in this instance, J&T was the designer of the project, and so then they're also our project manager as well. So they're more in tune with the components, the quantities, and the characteristics, and they may have had previous projects that they've done with different consultants. So when you look at it, it's the lowest responsible bidder. And so kind of flipping that over on the backside, if there's not a reason to say that that contractor cannot perform the job or miss something significantly in the proposal, then, you know, once we check the references and things, then usually we try to move ahead with that contractor.
Have we ever used them before in here with the city of Northland?
Not for this. This is a kind of a one-off project where this is a specialty contract, so I would hope that we would never need to use, after we rebuild these pumps, this type of service again. I mean, these pumps are, these things are giant.
You know, I did have a constituent say that sometimes not always going with the lower price is really the way to go. But if if the consultant says that they're qualified and that, you know, they can do it, they look at it at that level too?
Yeah, and we've had this conversation at other council meetings where there have been occasions where we do not select the actual lowest bidder and we select the next lowest, and that's why we have the responsible part in there where, you know, we have certain qualifications and things that need to be met during our bid specifications, so.
I'm just gonna say that I think that my hesitancy, you know, I will vote to approve it, just so you know, has a lot to do with everything I've heard about Irma for the last 6 months or however long we've been working on there. So that's where my concern comes in, because what I constantly hear is, what do we do? Choose the lowest price one and think that that's, you know, the best way to get something done. And we've had, you know, several problems, whether it's perceived or not, you know, if it's an actual problem, we've had issues. So I just want to make sure that we're really researching and not just going with the lowest bid. I know that there are several contracts that we didn't go with the lowest bid. I'm more attuned to the subject now than I think I've ever been in my life.
No, and we certainly appreciate that and welcome council's participation in that and knowing that we can not just select the low bid. But again, just even in this case, you know, we do have a $60,000 owner contingency built into here, so to protect us. And if you look at the bid sheet, we did have 3 relatively close bids, so it wasn't like the low bid was so far low that, you know, there was something wrong. And you know, again, I'll use the example. I think that happened a few times ago where there was somebody that was just so low that once we reviewed the bid documents and something that they missed that, and so then we went to the next lowest responsible bidder. So I'm confident in our due diligence and our consultant and the work that we've done side by side with them that we're going to get a very good project done.
Okay, well, that makes me a whole lot happier if you're happy.
Councilmember Duran Malika.
Thank you so much, Mayor. So my comments actually, Kent, are not really directed at you, but really backing, kind of piggybacking on Becky's conversation, because I also have heard lots of residents who are concerned about how we are hiring contractors in the city for not only public works, but other projects. So, you know, that is one thing that I do think would be a great study session item to understand, you know, how, you know, city staff are, you know, how do you guys decide who to choose, what criteria to use? I think a better understanding of that process could be helpful, especially when we're getting questions from residents about, you know, contractors and people who are upset about whatever project. And so I don't know if others feel the same way, but I would appreciate a study session to kind of just hash out our process and make sure that we're all at least aware of you know, what's going on and if there are any improvements to make in our current selection process. I'm not quite sure if there are, but it's worth a conversation to me.
So per council protocol, I would need consensus from council to bring that item forward. And I would say, if I can, Mayor, that the focus would be, you know, the language in our code is about responsible and responsive bidder. So I understand that there may be perceptions amongst the community specific to certain projects, given delays, impacts, things get broken, things don't go as planned. So we can unpack it and have a conversation about our purchasing protocol and why it is what it is and how it's working. If you'd like to do that, I just need consensus from council.
Mayor Pro Tem Wilford?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I definitely support doing that, and I think it could be a good opportunity for us to just, take a look at the process and see if there are any things that need to be fine-tuned or expanded upon. And I know that that's things that I've heard council members bring up for some time, so it seems really like a good moment to pause and do that.
I agree.
Is there anyone who doesn't think we should? No? Okay. There you go. All right, any other questions or comments for Kent before we vote?
Did we not get any Northland companies that,
There's not a
nobody?
Northglenn company that could support this work.
Okay. Like I
All
said,
right.
if you're happy, I'm happy.
Joanna, open the vote, please.
The vote is open.
Please vote.
Mayor Pro Tem Wilford, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councilmember Downing, how do you vote?
Yes.
I will close that vote, and CR 124 passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, moving into public invited to be heard. This is an opportunity for public comment. Statements are limited to 3 minutes per speaker. Comments must be related to an item previously addressed by the council during the meeting. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak to council at this time? Okay,
Mayor Lighty,
yes.
I did receive an audio file from Mark Bromley, if it's okay to play that during this public invited to be heard section.
Is it related to something previously addressed by council?
That I do not know.
I would say no then. Okay, I will entertain a motion to adjourn to executive session pursuant to section 4.5G of the City of Northglenn Home Rule Charter for negotiations concerning the purchase, sale, lease, or other acquisition of real or personal property or interest therein regarding a potential lease of city-owned property.
So moved.
And pursuant to section 4.5A of the City of Northglenn Home Rule Charter for personnel matters regarding council appointee evaluation.
Motion to approve.
Please open the vote.
I wasn't following.
The vote is open. Mayor Pro Tem Wilford, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councilmember Downing, how do you vote?
Yes.
I'll close that vote, and the motion to adjourn to executive session passes unanimously.
We will adjourn to the executive session. Dinner for council is available in our overflow room. Our videographer is going to break down the equipment. And that's it. So take a break. Thank you.
When do you want to?